Hello, and welcome to Joline Knits a Lot. This is my show about knitting and crafting here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where it is still cold and wintry. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm getting tired of the snow. It's the beginning of March, I guess almost the middle of March. And as I'm sitting here talking to you, I can see these lovely snowflakes drifting down, still falling from the sky. And I'm tired of it. I'm ready for spring. And I get jealous of people who are already posting pictures of green things. It's definitely very white here still. But this too shall pass, and soon enough it will be spring here. Today I'm wearing my Sophie shawl. I just love this pattern. I saw someone talking about this pattern, well, the Sophie scarf, just recently, and I just love that pattern. And I'm thinking that I might be knitting up another one, maybe a little scarf, perhaps another shawl. It's just a fabulous, relaxing garter stitch pattern if you're looking for something like that. What's new with you besides spring hopefully happening where you are? We've been, puttering along here. Life continues, people are busy. I continue to knit. And the dog continues to bark. I'm sorry if you hear him in the background. But I have finished a couple things in the last couple weeks, but I can't show them to you. The first thing that I finished was the grain shawl. I'll stick a picture here. I was knitting this shawl for a friend who was going through some health problems right now. And I just wanted to make her something to make her feel that I was thinking about her, to feel a little bit of comfort, and also to feel good about herself when she wears it. And I gave it to her last weekend, and the next day I saw her wearing it, and she was very, very pleased with it, so that makes me very happy. The grain shawl that I knit was using some caterpillar green yarn, which is the old name for Gauge Dye Works. I used her cashmere merino nylon base, so it was a very soft, lovely scarf. And I really hope she gets a lot of wear out of it, and maybe some comfort too. So that's the grain shawl. It's a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. Another great garter stitch, mindless, lovely knit if you're looking for something like that. The other thing that I have recently finished is a test knit. Now I know the last time I saw you, I was talking a little bit about sample knitting. Sample knitting is where you knit something for to be given to whoever asked you to knit it. So in my case, it was a yarn dyer, and she asked me to knit up some samples. In this case, it was hats for her to have, I think, to use probably on her website, but also in shows if she is selling her yarn. It's nice to be able to show some products that have been knit with your yarn. So I knit a couple of things and I gave those back to her, and in kind, she gave me a gift certificate for her yarn business. So that's pretty fabulous. And that is sample knitting. What I've just recently finished is a test knit. A test knit is when you're given a pattern that hasn't been released yet. You knit it with your own yarn. And the idea is that as you knit through it, you test the pattern. You see if there's any problems with the pattern, if there's anything that's unclear, if there are any instructions that are wrong or numbers that are wrong. Usually you're test knitting just one size. So in this case, I was test knitting a dog sweater. And that dog sweater comes in a multitude of sizes. So I was just testing the numbers, and the instructions are sort of universal, but I was just testing out my size that I was making for my dog. And part of the thing with a test knit is you get the pattern for free at the end. So I haven't paid for this pattern, but I did use my own materials, and I get to keep the product that I made. But I can't show you any pictures of it until it's been released. My understanding is this pattern will be coming out early next month, so you won't have to wait long to see a picture of my puppy Blue in his new sweater. But that's part of the fun thing about test knitting, is you kind of get in on the ground floor on some fun patterns, and you get to see if those patterns work for you. So I really enjoyed knitting this sweater, and you will probably be seeing it in the next few weeks. I have some things that I guess I sort of have one semi-finished project Let's go with that. If you may remember that in an effort to clear out my stash, or at least work through my stash, I started a blanket. This is a blanket that sort of knit along that's being hosted by the Bakery Bears. It's called My Favorite Blanket. And every month, Kay of the Bakery Bears dyes a couple of yarns. I'm not partaking in the dyeing part. I have enough hobbies. But then she uses those 2 yarns to add to this blanket project. So while I love the idea of that, I'm not a dyer, and also I have a lot of variegated and speckled yarns that I just haven't been using. They've been sitting in my stash. So I pulled them all out. I added them to my 1 sock tube a month knit along, personal knit along. And every month I'm pulling out a skein of yarn and I'm knitting it into this blanket. So this is the March section of the blanket. It continues to be sort of, it's knit and garter stitch. It started here in a corner, and you knit it increasing, and those are the 3 sections that I've done. The most recent yarn that I've added is a yarn dyed by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It was part of a Dolly Parton yarn club that I was in last year, and this color is called Do I Ever Cross Your Mind? It's sort of a really pretty creamy yellow color with pops of blue, and every once in a while a little speckle of yellow or pink or purple. This blanket is knit using 2 strands of a fingering weight held together, and so it's just every month I add a little section of the blanket, and every month I work through some of my stash. I have been using whatever leftovers I have, and that has varied between about 10 to 20 grams maybe ish left over. I'm just making a magic knot ball, and that magic knot ball will probably go into a crochet granny stripe blanket at some point. So I'm just taking the leftovers and putting them into something that can be used at a later date. So that is my favorite blanket. Again, this is a free pattern. It's hosted by the Bakery Bears, and every couple of episodes they put out a new section of the blanket. So if you watch along, you can have this pattern too. I have 3 other works in progress, and I'll show them to you from smallest to largest. I think that'll work the best. Yesterday, I cast on a very tiny little project that I have been wanting to knit for a very long time. This is something that a lot of people have knit, and it may come as no surprise to you that I also wanted to get on the frog bandwagon. So this is a pattern. Oh shoot, who put out this dot pebbles? Is that right? Hang on. I've got my pattern here. This is a very inexpensive pattern. I think it cost me, I think it was £3. Is that right? This is the frog pattern by Claire Garland, also known as Dot Pebbles. She has many stuffy, tiny little stuffy patterns. But the frog is just so adorable. And he has his own sweater. And if you follow on Instagram, there is a lovely lady who has been making videos of this frog with music, and he's like getting out of bed, having a bubble bath, drinking some tea, eating a very tiny croissant, and he also flies a kite with his friend Toad. Like, it's just the sweetest little set of videos. And my Instagram feed is full of pictures of this frog because I am obsessed. So I really needed to knit one. Also, my oldest nephew is currently working on a master's degree in medical research, and his medical research involves frogs. This just makes sense. His birthday's coming up next month, and I am going to be making a little froggy for him for his birthday. Don't tell him if you know him. And I just started this yesterday. It's ridiculous how quick this goes, and it is such a well-written pattern. You cast on at the bum, and you through a very through a number of different little short rows, you make some shaping. There's like a little ridge here where one of his legs will be joined. So this is like a hip joint. And then he kind of comes in, and then you make these lovely eye sockets. I've already inserted the child safety eyes. My nephew's 24. I think he'll be okay. But they really add a lot of character to the frog. And then you kind of like shape down the nose, and then you use a contrast color. In this case, I'm using this beautiful bougie beaver. Can't get away from the bougie beaver for the belly. And now what I need to do today is seek out some yarn, or not yarn, some stuffing, so that I can stuff the frog and then seam him up, and then he just needs some arms and some legs. Like, this project has gone so fast. And even without seaming him up, I think you can see the character of the little frog. So that has been a delightful project. I'm so glad that I cast it on, and it is going so quickly. I have a feeling I'm going to be knitting more of these froggies, because I think probably both my daughters are going to want one, and I think probably I'm going to want one. And then as soon as somebody else sees this frog, they're going to want one too. Now, there is a sweater for his, there is a sweater for the frog. There he is. I haven't decided if I'm going to make it striped or one color. It might be striped, actually, because then I also found a pattern for some like overalls, some little pants with like suspenders and stuff. So you can tuck the little sweater in, you can have his little suspenders. So I'm a little bit obsessed with the froggy right now. He's just adorable. But you do, the pattern is very well written. It is very well laid out. But you do have to pay attention to what you're doing, because every row changes. It's not like simple stockinette. Having said that, it's a quick knit. But you do have to pay a little bit of attention, so it's not like mindless knitting. I'm using some leftover Farmer's Daughter yarn. This is Recollect. It's a sport weight. And so because I'm using a slightly lighter weight yarn than the pattern calls for, I went down a needle size. So I think that the pattern calls for a 3.5 millimeter needle, and I'm using a 3. Now, the other thing that I did that was slightly different from the pattern is that the pattern suggests you use 2 yarns held together, one of them being like a mohair fuzzy yarn, which is really cute. However, I have this thing that frogs are amphibians, and amphibians are not fuzzy. So for me, my frog is not going to be fuzzy. Although I think the ones that are fuzzy are absolutely adorable, and I love looking at all the color combinations that people use. But I'm just using a little sport weight, a couple of different sport weight yarns to make a sweet little frog for my nephew. And I can't wait to see how this guy turns out. I did purchase some pipe cleaners that I'm going to be inserting into the legs and arms, so he will be posable. Because apparently that's also important in a stuffy for a 24-year-old, almost 25-year-old. Oh dear. Okay, well, you know what? Lots of people are getting frogs, so we can all have fun with frogs. The next project I have on the needles is, I think, maybe something I've shown you before. This is my current stockinette sock that I have on the needles. And I did make some progress because there was a soccer tournament last weekend. This is some yarn by Knitspin Farms. It is in the Corriedale sock yarn. And I think it's called Mad for Plaid, because apparently March is Wear Your Plaid month. Anyway, it's been really fun to knit on. And I'm trying to use just this yarn. So I'm going to be, I've just started the toe decreases, which you can probably maybe not really tell. So I'm going to do the toe decreases. I'm going to do an afterthought heel, and I will be using this yarn so that it looks sort of like a bullseye heel. And then I'll be starting another one because there is a volleyball tournament this weekend. March is full of sporting events. So a stockinette sock is ideal for those types of situations. And I'm looking forward to finishing off the toe of this one and getting some ribbing on the needles so that by the time I'm watching some volleyball tomorrow, I will just have some easy peasy stockinette to work on. Because I think it's going to be a bit of a stressful weekend. a lot of tough games coming up, which is exciting and great for my kid. Nothing like a challenge. And then the final project that I have on my needles right now is the Shift-Again. This cardigan, my goodness. Let me show you where I'm at. I've joined the DRK March to May knit along, which is a knit along for knitting, I believe, sweaters and shawls, designed by Drea Renee Knits or Andrea Mowry. And it's so much fun to have a knit along to join into. And then this week, Magpie Fibers announced their Beave Along, which is a knit along using any of their yarns dyed from their beaver collection. And the beaver collection is probably what you think it is, a sassy lady part inspired colorway collection. As you know, I've been using Bougie Beaver in my Shift-Again, and I'm sort of thinking I'll hold out finishing this so that I can join the Beave Along with this sweater as well. I have other plans for that Beave Along. Remind me later, because I don't think that I don't think that frogs with a little bit of Bougie Beaver count, but I'll see if I can work him in. Anyway, back to the Shift-Again. Now, this sweater has been, it's been enjoyable to knit, but every second colorwork round involves some purling, and that slows me down and has been a bit of a damper on the flow of it, because every time I hit that row, it slows me down, although it's good for me. I'm learning to work the purls and colorwork a little bit faster and a little bit more efficiently, but it's not my favorite thing to do. Anyway, I tried this sweater on and I stopped it a little bit earlier than was recommended by the pattern because I decided that I didn't want it to be too long. I know. Usually I'm all about making sweaters hip length or longer, but this one, I don't know, why don't I get up and show you? It just felt right for it to be not as long. Hi, I'm still here. Okay, here it is. So, as you can see, the way that the sweater is currently, it's going to just sort of hit the top of my jeans. And I think that's where I want it to be, especially if I'm going to wear this sweater with maybe a dress. I'm back. So that was a pleasant surprise because I ended up stopping the body sooner than I thought I would have to. And this is what the body looks like. This row of sort of dots in the center is where the steek is going to happen. So then I picked up the first sleeve and I got working on that. A lot of knitters have suggested that the way that the pattern is written creates a sleeve that is a little bit too long for them. And as you know, I have short arms. So I decided to take their advice and omit one of the pattern repeats. So the pattern was supposed to have 6 repeats on the sleeve and I did 5. You can see the beautiful color changing of the handspun yarn I'm using. This handspun yarn is by the Fiber Goddess and it's a BFL Sport. It's lovely and I have quite a bit of it left. Oh, here it is. So I'm going to have lots of yarn left over and that will go with my spin cycle probably for future projects. Anyway, I was following the pattern for my sleeve for the size that I chose, and I chose a size with about 3 inches of positive ease. And then I finished all the decreases and I finished all of the color work, and I realized that the sleeve was going to be a bit too wide at the cuff. I didn't want this to be really loose and floppy sort of. So I had a look at the pattern. The cuff for my size that I was knitting was 76 stitches. The next size down, the cuff used only 68 stitches. So I did an extra round in the main color before starting the cuff, and I decreased evenly around 8 stitches to take me from 76 stitches to 68 stitches. to do that, I just went 76 divided by 8, and I got 9.5, I believe. Yes, 9.5. So that means that I need to decrease 1 stitch every 9 stitches. And for me, I knit 7 and then I knit 2 together. So I started out with 9 stitches, 7 plus the knit 2 together, and the knit 2 together decreased 1 stitch, so I went down to 8. So I did knit 7, knit 2 together around 8 times, so I decreased 8 stitches, and then I had 4 stitches left and I just knit them. And then I started the cuff. So I do get a little bit of like a poof sleeve here, but I'm fine with that. I think it's actually kind of cute. And then I just picked up the stitches from my other sleeve. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm wiggling you. And I got started there. So this sweater is actually picking up pace. The sleeves aren't going as slowly as I thought they might, especially because, you know, as you start decreasing down the sleeve, you've got fewer and fewer stitches, so it does go quicker. So the next challenge for this sweater is going to be the button, or the steek and the button bands. As I showed you earlier, Andrea Mowry makes it quite obvious where you're going to be doing the steek. I think that for this sweater, my plan is to pick up the button bands. So I'll be picking up stitches in a vertical row between these 2 main color stitches, and then again on the other side between these 2 main color stitches. And then I will do the crochet stabilization of the steek right down the center, right here, and then I'll cut it. The reason I'm going to do the button bands first is that it makes it a lot easier. Well, I mean, it's harder to pick up the stitches, but then once those button bands are in place and you've done the steek, it's quite stable. You can certainly do it the other way around. You can do the crochet, cut it, and then pick up the button bands. And I have done it that way before. I guess I'm undecided. I always refer to Kate Davies' steek tutorials when I'm doing a steek. Even when I feel confident and I know what I'm doing, I still refer to Kate Davies because it's a steek and you're cutting your knitting, and I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. So I think what I'll do is work on the sleeve. That'll give me some time to have a look at Kate's tutorials and see what she recommends. She does have a couple of different ways of doing steeks. I'm always going to refer to Kate. So Kate, whatever you say is what I'm going to do, and I'll let you know the next time I see you how that went. I'm probably going to stretch this out a little bit and try and include this sweater in the Magpie Fibers Beav Along. Because the main color of it is Bougie Beaver, knit in Nest Sport, which again is a Cordell, 100% non-superwash yarn. Yeah, and I think this sweater is going to be kind of fun. We'll see how much I wear it. The color combination is something that is a little bit different for me, but I think it's really interesting and cool, especially when you look at it from a distance and can see the color changes of that contrast yarn. We shall see. Oh, and the other thing I need to do is find some buttons. I'll get on that too. Hopefully the next time I see you, I will have made some progress. Speaking of the Beav Along though, I got super excited when the Magpie Fibers announced their Beaver Along. I have been, every once in a while this happens to me. I'll see a pattern and it just sticks in my head and I really want to knit it. And it bumps all my other projects that I think I wanted to knit down the queue until I can get this one off the needles. So the pattern in question is the June top. This is a simple tank top by Petite Knits, who you know I love. She's the designer of the Sophie Scarf Shawl collection. And this is a simple top, and I'm going to be knitting it in Magpie Fibers Equinox Sport Base. This is a silk and linen blend, which I've never used before, and I'm really looking forward to. I chose the Little Bit Bougie colorway, which is a very pale pink, and I think it'll be a nice layering piece for spring and summer. And I just have been really sort of stuck on this pattern for quite some time. I think it'll be an easy, relaxing knit. I understand it has some really nice finishing details, which I'm looking forward to knitting. And I think it'll be a great way to join in the Beave Along without being too stressful and having a piece that I've really been wanting in my wardrobe and joining in the fun. If you're interested in the Beave Along, pick up your beaver inspired colorways from Magpie Fibers, or just join the fun watching along either on Instagram or Facebook where the knit along will be happening. Thanks for joining me again this week. I've got quite a few little projects on the go, and I look forward to finishing them, especially this frog. This pattern has been looking at me while I talk to you, and I am excited to see how he turns out. I hope in the next couple of weeks you have time to work on a frog, maybe some socks, pick up a beaver or two, or do the things that you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. I'll see you soon. Bye.